if you had to maybe kind of teach a skill set where someone needs to start to learn these wonderful things that you've created for yourself, where would you tell them to start first?
I would start by putting the damn phone down.
Hi, and welcome back to the Mind Body Method podcast, and I'm your host, Josh Grimm. I am a man that believes that the mind and body are in constant conversation with each other, and one of the desired outcomes of that conversation is health, wellness, and longevity. So I'm very excited to have my guest here today, my friend April, who is going to help us kind of navigate through that topic a little bit. April is a client of mine, a really, really good friend, and over the years, we have had hundreds of conversations on this topic. April has this uncanny way of kind of connecting the dots between this topic alone, between the mind and body. You know, she's on her own personal journey right now to sort of find that perfect balance and that perfect recipe to be able, for her to be able to sustain the longevity in her own health and wellness. So I am very excited to have us all hear about the value that she has to offer and kind of take a little bit of a piece of an example of all the things that she has taught me over the years.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored
Cheers.
to be here. Cheers, my love. I can reach you.
So why don't you start by telling our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself before we kind of dive into all the questions that I'm going to ask you.
I know you have so many lined up for me, which I went home and I was like, this is like a book report that I have to really prepare for. Like Josh said, I have been his client for a while, friends more importantly, and such like an esteemed lover for who you are and what you stand for. And Josh and I have always really connected, you know, more than just like a client coach relationship, very much on a very deep level. Josh is one of the very, actually a few people of those in my life who I really feel like when I talk about the woo woo things, you're like, oh yeah, clock it. Like,
right.
You know, I know exactly what you're talking about, but, I am from Massachusetts. I've been in New York City for about 15 years now and absolutely love it. I work in finance, but like, who cares? Like all the other bitches in this city. And just a lover of all things, you know, spiritual, the woo-woo world. I always love having very much, you know, those deep conversations, especially with you.
Well, you're very good at them.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored to be here.
Oh, please.
Yeah. And let's start on this book report.
Okay, here we go. So,
See if I can remember everything.
I mean, listen, when I think back on the conversations, there are very specific times in my life that I've really leaned on you for some guidance and for some clarity and, you know, things that one would think I could find the answers for myself, but you say things with such like conviction and just the things just make sense. So I have some conversations in my head that make sense to me. Can you think of a time that we had something that maybe you offered me some advice or vice versa? Like, can you elaborate a little bit on a time where we shared something really special?
I mean, one of the biggest things that I remember that really stand out to me, you know, I mentioned I work in finance and still do, but I work for a new company, but I used to work for a company that, you know, a lot of people that worked there were, you know, just difficult to work with. And I felt really beat up from that job and from that company specifically. I think a lot of people in their lives probably have that kind of memory in their mind. And I remember it was during COVID. We had to, you know, say goodbye to each other for a hot moment during COVID. I had to move down to New Jersey with my company, the one I'm speaking about. And I came back to the city and I felt really beat up. I didn't really know who I was. I felt like I lost that beautiful part that you're talking about in the beginning of who I am and just really lost that grasp on everything, my beliefs. And you just kept it very 100. You did a very excellent job of being like, wait a minute, that's not you. This is you. And you were really much like my shepherd in guiding me back to who I truly was at my essence and my core. And I don't think that I've ever told you that. And I don't think I've ever actually shared that with you.
You never had to. I've always felt that from you.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so that was that was definitely a time in my life where, really had to lean into all of the things that we've discussed together as friends in terms of, a deep relationship within ourselves, not only with each other, but knowing, who I am and returning to that.
So our listeners will kind of understand a little bit more about you as we get on with this conversation, this book report. But is there a point of your life that you can think of that's very pivotal where you became this on this mindfulness journey? Or do you think that's just ingrained in you? Is it something that you grew into? Were you influenced to do something?
Both. So I'm going to make a joke, but when I was growing up, I feel like there's this joke where if a kid is like really quiet and they're a little awkward, like everyone just politely says like, "Oh, April's just the sensitive kid." And it's basically just saying like, "Oh, your kid's awkward." But like I just felt growing up there was something different about me. I felt very serious, but also when you're like 10, 11, 12 and things are happening around you and you're just really getting a grasp on like what the world is, you don't really know. You're just kind of being yourself. And so I knew that I was kind of always looking at things from like a very hawk's eye view. I used to get like these really incredible spiritual downloads when I was a child, not knowing that's exactly what they were, but just feeling like very supported from something that just wasn't present on this earth plane. And then when I was about 27, I was going through this very interesting phase of what I think the internet likes to call a pick-me girl.
I've never heard that before.
Right. Okay. So it's a very interesting concept. It's usually geared towards women. And it's really about like living your life and saying the things that you're doing and doing the things that you do really for male approval, even if it goes against like what you believe yourself. Like, so for example, it would be like putting other girls down, just so you could get the approval of the guy sitting next to you. And I did that certainly in a relationship with a guy that I dated in finance, like a quote unquote finance bro. And I was like, oh, like, I don't care if you go out late. I don't care if you like go the entire weekend hanging out with your boys, golfing at some golf course. I'm cool with it. When I totally was not cool with it. I was really putting my stuff, like myself, definitely behind what he wanted, what he expected of me. And that relationship obviously blew up in my face. I fell super hard for this guy. It was one of those really like twin flame relationships where it's like fireworks and you're going up the roller coaster and then all of a sudden you're going down the roller coaster and you have no lap bar and you're like, I don't know if I'm flying right now, but I'm definitely going to fall on my face.
Did you have that recognition when you were in it, or were you in it so hard with the guy that you didn't see that you were kind of losing yourself a little bit?
The latter, for sure. I think inherently I knew I was losing myself, but that mind-body connection, my body would really just fall. I was physically falling on the ground, crying, not understanding what was happening, even though I was the product of my own being and what I was doing, which was not being aligned with myself. But I got a therapist, and really how I felt was a giant wheel of Swiss cheese. I was something, but full of holes, and I really had to build it one by one. That is when I started my spiritual journey into Buddhism and all the self-help books and all of the gurus and my therapist. And that was kind of when everything kind of took off. And it's also my Saturn return.
Okay.
Coincidentally enough. So I was like, I guess it's supposed to happen.
I mean, after all the times we've spoken about all these things, you retain a lot of knowledge also. Like you retain a lot of what you're passionate about, which is self-discovery and, learning about how to take care of April and, self-actualized April and things like that. So, I mean, I would say that that's a very, very important characteristic to have for you to be able to keep climbing the ladder and going step by step by step to get to where you actually want to go, because you don't really fall back, right? We all may slide a step or two or, drop a ring of the ladder here and there, but you're always able to climb back up, which is really important. And it's probably because of the work you've been putting into. Like you, from my perspective, you sometimes go 190% and 190 miles an hour when sometimes you could just take a little bit of a breath back or a step back and recognize the success that you've had with yourself and your journey to who you are now. It's very admirable where you are. So what kind of advice would you give to someone that is maybe kind of similar to who April was at that point of time whenever you were sort of losing yourself in this relationship?
It's a really good question. That time of, I mean, I think I tell a lot of girls that even joined my company and they're like coming out of college, 22 years old. I think just two things. One, get a therapist because I'm sure your parents fucked you up in some way or another. And two, understand like money and understand like financial abundance and like really like take care of your inner self and take care of your bank account and you should be pretty golden.
I mean, just to have a little like blurb in here, April is very, very, very happily married with a wonderful man now. So
Yeah.
by the way,
We love Jeremy.
do you have an explanation as to, or an opinion about how the mind and the body are connected? Is there some sort of emotion that you have whenever you think about the connectivity between the two?
How I feel about that, like we talk about how there's a division between, even though there is a connection between our mind, our brain, and our body, I like to think that our body is the entire brain.
Oh.
There's something going on. There's parts of our body that are telling us different things. It's not just what's in our head. It's anything from how, if your body is breaking down, if you're sore, you know, even working on your chakras or like, even if you have, not to be gross, but like bad body odor, your body is telling you something that you need to address.
Right. I mean, we've had that conversation too, even while we're training together, you know, you kill it in the gym. You always have. I mean, I have worked out with this woman many, many times and she keeps up with me. It's wild. You're an expert at kettlebell flow. Maybe we'll have to show some videos here, some tutorials at some point. If you had to maybe kind of teach a skill set where someone needs to start to learn these wonderful things that you've created for yourself, where would you tell them to start first?
I would start by putting the damn phone down.
Good one.
Put the damn phone down. Get outside. Take your shoes off, unless it's winter in the Northeast. Take your shoes off. Ground your feet into the earth. Get that grass in between your toes. One thing that I've done, and it's so interesting because it works every single time, I will put my ear to the earth and I swear to goodness I hear answers for whatever questions I'm asking the universe. In that terrible relationship, I remember asking the universe, like, what should I do about this? And I literally was just laying on the ground and I turned to the side, put my ear to the earth, and I just got this very clear message of trust. And it was loud, it was palpable, and I couldn't deny that I had just heard that. And from that day on forward, I really went and took this, like whatever externally I was emitting out into the world and turned it inward.
I think it's so important to listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to your mind. I mean, I think I'm pretty good at that, you know, and it's like, it can sometimes be scary and raw and you want to run away from it. You want to, you know, turn your head and just go and do the easier thing because it feels better in the moment. But to be able to sit there with either if it's trauma or the happiness, whatever it is, but just enjoy whatever end of the spectrum it is really, really great. You know, when we feel joy, we want to stay in that place. But when we feel sadness and when we feel kind of stressed out, we need to sit with that too sometimes to figure out why we're feeling that way and how to fix it mindfully. It sounds like to me that you obviously know who you are. I'm sure knowing you that you're not exactly where you want to be. You're always trying to go higher and higher. But do you feel like you have a good identity of who April is today?
Yes, I do. Yeah. And I probably would not have said that as confidently, maybe even 8 months ago. If there's anything that I've learned, that healing is not linear, it is secular.
Right.
And so even if you think that healing is a destination, it's not, you're never actually ever really arriving. Sometimes you can, but if something is bubbling up to the surface again, it just means that you have to just readdress it. They're just knocking on your door. You have to let them into dinner. You have to sit them down, give them a really beautiful warm meal, pat their back, let them sit for however long they need to do, and then just let them leave like they're just any other guest.
Doesn't it feel sort of scary to be in a linear place? Like, I don't, you can take that breath when you feel content and happy for a moment. But if you sit there too long, I start to have like claustrophobia. I'm almost like suffocating myself if I feel like I'm just stagnant, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I can enjoy this moment for a few hours or for a few days. But I'm like, all right, what's next? What is next?
100%. I could not agree with you more, which is why, like, if you look at it like a circle, you're like, oh, we're just going around the merry-go-round. We're not 20 million yards from the touchdown.
Why do you think
line.
that some people, a lot of people, and by the way, I'm not putting us on this like pedestal. I'm not saying that, but I am very proud of where my mind is and where your mind is. It's like,
Same.
It's like, I have few offerings that I'm very, very happy with in my life, and this is one of my greatest. Why do you think that some have that problem trying to find their identity? I do think a lot of it is outside influences. Like you said, put the phone down. The comparison between you and the next person, the next Josh, the next April, is really high. So, how do people discover their identity?
I mean, I think it's not, to answer this question, you have to acknowledge a lot of the conditioning that's going on in the world, and even this gaslighting that we do with ourselves.
Yeah.
It's like I can be going through something and I can get the therapist, I can do the journaling, I can go to the sound baths, I can talk with my friends. But there's like this dichotomy of that, and also this identity within ourselves of being the overachiever, of being the go-getter. And so it's kind of like this battle in the battlefield of, trying to show up for yourself, but also holding this identity of where you align. But sometimes you just have to lose that because it's costing you in the end. And so I think where people can really start to like figure out who they are, is obviously, like we said, getting out in nature. I think journaling is so powerful. I was just talking about this with my therapist today, actually. Bringing it back to exercise, we'll do a million squats and a lot of like leg presses. And in the moment of being consistent, you're like, okay, like I hope this is doing something. And that it is in hindsight. But then all of a sudden you're walking by the mirror and you're like, oh, my ass looks really good.
Right.
And it's kind of like journaling. I mean, a lot of like huge clarity moments I've had is, maybe a week and a half after doing like consistent journaling for the previous 10 days. And you have these aha moments and they're so small. It's like Instagram and social media have this very like before and after. But like healing is not, it's sexy if you wanted to make it sexy, but it's a lot of like really boring moments where you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. All right, I need to get milk and eggs from the grocery store.
Right.
I
definitely think that, I have a lot of rituals and routines that from an outsider's point of view, I've been told that I'm too rigid or a psychopath with all of like the crazy routines that I have.
I love it.
I mean, I love it too. But I mean, from an outsider's point of view, I can see that like it takes a lot of work. I mean, going back to, it's not like a before and after. It was a journey. It took me, I do the things that I do for me now because it's what works for me now. It's what makes me at peace now. And it's going to change. It's going to shift. It's going to evolve. But I do know when I drop the ball and I don't follow the current routine that I'm in, I feel the repercussions of it, right? It's like, if I'm on my routine and I'm doing my week and a half of my routine, whatever it is, I'm like, oh, I had a really good day today. And, this is why I know that's what works for me. I mean, again, I'm very rigid and I'm getting to a point, but I'm very rigid with, no music during the week, Monday through Friday. I have 3 or 4 different kinds of meditations that I do depending on my mood. I have very, very strict sleep patterns where it's like I'm 8:20 p.m. during the week is my bedtime, I meditate certain times of the day, whatever it is. So what's yours? I want to know your path and your your habits. Do you have a specific?
It's so funny that you say that. I'm so amazed by your morning routine. I mean, I know that. Can you just describe yours real quick? You get up at like 3:30 or 4?
Well, my alarm is set at 4:20. I am 100% awaking before my alarm, which I'm very grateful for. I'd rather get up earlier, but I naturally wake up around, lately this past week, it's been 3:38, like days in a row. And I wake up and I wash my face and I put on an eye patch. You know, I'm 45, I have to be careful. A face mask usually. I go back into bed and I meditate. Like this morning I did a fire breath work, and I did a 15-minute meditation. I didn't journal today. Journaling for me, I love it, but I don't do it all the time. Then I made my traditional 2 pieces of sourdough toast with cottage cheese, a little bit of black pepper, a protein shake, protein cereal, egg whites with turkey or chicken sausage, a little bit of rice, hot sauce, a little bit of avocado, and some fruit.
I love the specifics.
And by then it's like 4:30, so it's like time to start the day, you know. And then I'll, then I typically like vacuum every morning because like dust on the floor drives me nuts. My carpet in my bedroom is dark
Which
blue.
I'm sure your neighbors love at 4:30 in the morning
Right.
every day.
It's one of those powerful ones too. So it's really quick. It's powerful. Oh, by the way, my bed is made as soon as I get out of bed. Before I even go to the bathroom, to wash my face, my bed is made. Has to be. Before I even lay into it to meditate again. My lights all go on dimmers on timers at 4:20, and they're set to go from 0% to 35% casually. So it's a nice like glowing wake up. So that's my routine.
I hope everyone's taking notes about this. Wait, I have to call you out for a second,
It's called How to Not Have a Boyfriend.
Wait, I have to call you out for a second because there's something else that you start your day with, which is so hilarious.
What?
Well, you've told me that
I'm thinking. What?
of the things that you used to wake up, you do all that, but it's so funny for the viewers back home that may not know this because I just found this out recently. What are the videos that you watch in the morning?
Oh, it's morning or sometimes at night. I'm obsessed with plane crashes. So I love the show Air Disasters. It's my favorite show on the planet. There's 23 seasons maybe, and I have bought every single episode for $2.99, and I watch everyone all the time. I will watch them on planes. I think it's fascinating to see the workings behind and how they solve the problem, or how the problem was solved, they figure it out. It doesn't scare me. It actually makes me excited. That or tornadoes, any kind of like destruction.
I mean,
The air disaster. I'm a aviation geek through and through. So anything with airplanes, anything with runway design, anything. But yeah, airplane disasters are really special to me.
the irony that we're sitting here talking about like meditation and getting our feet
It's
in the
relaxing.
grass, and you're like, I wake up every morning, watch plane crashes.
That's what I watch while I'm eating my breakfast.
It's hilarious.
I'm sitting in that chair that you're sitting in now.
And that is just what is so beautiful about being a human.
So what is your routine?
My routine, I have to wake up very early, not as early as you, of course, but I have to admit I don't really have one. I am the type of person fly by the seat of my pants. I'm completely just being really honest. It's very important to get as much sleep as I possibly can.
Very important.
So I wake up. I would love to have your routine, sans the air traffic control disaster videos, but
I will say though, routine is a safety net. I do believe that, right? It's like I do the routine to build the habit. And so it's not like I wake up and say, okay, I'm checking off the box. It's just my habit now. And it's what makes me feel good. And it changes. You know, it's not like I think about it. It's just like breathing. It's just something I do that I enjoy. And I'm sure it will change over time. You know, maybe I'll stop liking that show, or maybe I'll stop liking to meditate for a little bit, or I'll change my meditations. It's not like, I think it starts, those routines have started and those habits have started to make myself feel better about something that I was going through, right? This is going to help me get to XYZ. So now, because I have such clarity on, I do know what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's what I was looking for. You know, you have to know enough of what you don't want to know what you do. And you have to know about like how to get to a certain place. And I feel like I've found that. And I love that.
have you ever heard of that quote that Venus Williams said? Because I really struggled with having a morning routine, or like, aside from obviously everything that everyone has to do every day, shower, brush your teeth, things like that. But Venus Williams said that having discipline gives you freedom. When I initially felt like it was the other way around. When you have discipline and you have a routine, I'm like, well, what happens if I feel like this today or if I feel like that today? And I felt like it was very constricting, but I could not agree with her more.
Right. I agree.
It gives you the freedom,
Right.
Because it gives you that foundation like you're talking about, and then you can just go from there.
I think that people don't necessarily understand my routine because it can be harsh and rigid, but I do feel freedom. Like, I don't feel like I'm like handcuffed to my routine. I just feels like that's what allows me to show up for my clients and for my who I'm coaching, for my friends and for myself. You know, I feel weebly wobbly if I don't do certain things, right? And I like it. I like where at this age where I am, because in my 30s I was not that person. My early 30s.
Yeah. When did you start doing this morning routine?
32, 31.
Okay.
But definitely in my 20s, I was a wild man. I was an Aquarius.
Aquarius are supposed to have the luckiest year next year in 2026 out of all of the zodiac signs. Just wanted to point that out. Been telling all my Aquarius friends
about that. You know, I kind of made a joke saying that how to not have a boyfriend is having like these kind of routines, and I don't mean that, but it makes the pool a little bit different, right? We want to be appreciated for what we're delivering, and sometimes I don't necessarily think that my future partner needs to like take any of these habits and implement them into their own life, but they have to be able to respect mine, right? So do you think that our knowledge and clarity of mindset and resilience impact our relationships?
100%. I think that's what drives them for sure. I mean, if we're not working on ourselves, we have to obviously pour into our own cup before we can pour into others. But I also think, like an example of that man that I used to date, clearly that blew up because I was not aligned with myself. So then that's why it's important to do the best you can to align with yourself and what you believe and figure out what those beliefs are, which change over time.
In your current relationship with Jer, does he like kind of support how strong of a woman you are? Does he celebrate it?
100%. He is the best partner. I feel so safe in my marriage. It's the only relationship that I really have actually felt safe. He's a teacher, you know, and he is a high school teacher at that, in a public high school. And, you know, you have to have a certain type of healing, empathic way to relate with children who are going through puberty and come from like all different types of socioeconomic backgrounds. So that has created a muscle in my husband where, you know, nothing is surprising for him. He'll make fun of me in my woo-woo ways and like just being cute and adorable. However, you know, he really shows up and I really feel like I can be myself with him. Absolutely.
Do you think that there are certain qualities specifically that you have that has attracted him to you?
Yes. And it's interesting because I worked with a relationship coach around the time that I eventually found my husband. And she asked me a very prevalent question. She said, why do you think you keep attracting unavailable men in your life? And I said, I don't know. I guess I just have a bad picker. And she said, do you actually think that you're available? Like even in your own energy?
I feel like this is a mirror right now.
Yes. Could be.
Am I set up? Is this a
No,
setup?
I promise.
Is this a setup?
But it was but I asked my friends who are or were in similar situations where they're just not finding the person that wants to commit to them. And I would pose them that same question. And as soon as I realized that, wow, maybe I'm not as available as I thought, maybe I am hiding a lot of things about myself. And, you know, and there's no shame in that. If you get hurt, it is what it is. You're just going to your brain is going to protect you. Our brains are not supposed to make us happy. They're supposed to detect, you know, threats, you know, keep us stable and keep us safe. But when someone asks you that question, you're like, oh my God, like, am I available? And then as soon as I really worked on becoming more available, I started showing up so much differently in my dating life. And that is when I really attracted the type of energy that I always longed for.
Right. I do remember like a couple of years ago, I'm terrible with timelines, but I do remember going through a sort of a painful time from this guy. And it was very confusing to me because I wasn't certain how and why it ended the way it did. And I fled and went to Montreal for the weekend. And do you remember
I remember
and
this.
I reached out to you. And I think that you and I at that time were having many deep conversations, but I think that was a very pivotal, going back to the beginning of this podcast, that was a pivotal conversation for me, was that weekend when I kind of leaned on you a little bit for some like safety and some security and some answers. And you were able to give me such clarity that I was able to actually enjoy the breakup because I was so looking forward to what was on the other end of it. Do you know what I mean?
I love
Oh
that.
my gosh, it was amazing. I remember sitting on that Ferris wheel in Montreal.
I
Like when we were
remember
out.
this.
Yeah.
You texted
And
me.
I felt so broken and felt so like confused. But because of our conversation, like I was able to be like, oh, I'm really excited to see what's next, you know?
I'm so happy.
But like so many people sit in their pain and sit in their like wallow in the misery or ignore it, right? And it's people always say, you know, sit with it, or you know, if you're going through hell, go through it. You know, who said that? Winston Churchill. So anyway, that was a takeaway from that. What kind of qualities do you think are important to create the sustainability in friendships? Not necessarily like a loving relationship, in friendships.
In friendships, that's a really good question. In friendships, I think it's about how you view yourself in the role of that specific friendship. I feel like a lot of people just need space to vent, just to hold space for your friends. You know, friendships are interesting because there's no marriage certificate, but
Exactly.
it is a relationship that you have to have longevity with. And, you know, my best friend Sean and I, we love the hell out of each other.
Hi, Sean.
I know. Hi, Sean. I'm talking about you. You must love this. He and I have had, I mean, I would consider that a marriage. And I think the sustainability of friendships are both people really taking a long, hard look at themselves, working on themselves. There has to be a sense of safety and both people working on themselves and showing up and being honest and communicating. At the end of the day, that's exactly what it is.
So I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast where you are kind of on this journey to find the perfect recipe for the connectivity between your mind and body, you know, and I would like for you to share a little bit more about that. And I say the word recipes because you and I were at a talk together and someone said that resonated with you, right? Whenever, you know, finding that perfect recipe to the health and wellness where you want to be. So like, you know, like I said, you are extremely hardworking on your mind and your body, physically, like for physical strength. You know, strength is very important to you. So, are you finding that sort of balance and recipe that makes you become the woman that you want to be?
I mean, I think that there's just so much influence now. I mean, we're doing a podcast now, but like my gratitude for the explosion of podcasts in the past decade is unsurmountable.
Yeah.
You have the opportunity to listen to incredible, very smart people with incredible business acumen or wealth or health acumen. And so when you're given so many ingredients, what is the recipe? Does it change all the time? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it this massive spread? Is it a snack? I mean, the recipe for mind and body connection is, I mean, my God, where could we even start? Meditation. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't talked about meditation.
Let's talk about it.
Meditation, I think, is the gateway to connect to the other side, whatever the other side might be. I think all the answers lie in the universe, and you can just beautifully pluck them down, like Noel Gallagher has said from Oasis, and the way that he talks about, you know, songs being in the ethers and just picking them out. It's also kind of similar into like the awakenings that one person might find. Meditation is that way of grasping those things and plucking them out and finding that clarity. Mind-body connection goes to, I don't know, stretching. They say Deepak Chopra does yoga every single day because he said that it unlocks, like if you're sick, they say it's because your chi is like locked in your elbow or something, you know? And I remember I hadn't worked out with you for a few weeks and I was just feeling awful, like terrible. And then I had this one workout with you and I was like, I am back. This is amazing. You know, working out your body. It's like wringing out a sponge. Right. So the recipe ranges from that to stretching, to yoga, to internal work, your relationships. I mean, people say that the longevity of your life is now primarily your relationships. And it has to be with yourself too. Right, of course. So I think that I love the idea of having different, like a toolbox of all these different kind of meditations. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough now that I've done so many years and years of it that I can just kind of reach into my toolbox and know what works for me for that day. One of my favorites that I've been doing lately is like, you know, really being able to kind of do a placeholder for things that I want to deal with later, right? So it's like, you know, a visual meditation where I can put things into an actual box that I can access at some point when I'm ready to, right? It still sits there. It's still in the air. It's kind of hanging out up over here. And it changes colors depending on the severity of what it is. Sometimes the box is a really perfect square. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it's kind of like floating up and down, like pick me, whatever. But I think the visual meditations are a lot. I'm diving into more of those right now, which I think are really interesting, especially being a busy man who's on the go 24/7. I had to be able to tap into access of, you know, something that instead of just sitting in my bed or on a chair breathing and, you know, guided meditations, I had to be able to find something else that works as I'm walking down the street or on my bicycle. I love visual meditations.
Okay. What do you like about them?
I love that they guide you into a place and then you can kind of play with them. It's kind of like getting into lucid dreaming, but you're awake at the same time. And so it's fun to play around with those. And then I feel like you just get like incredible messages in the way that you have guided meditations for sure.
So talking about all of these like tools that we have to bring ourselves to, you know, the self-actualized us that we like to have. I think that the viewers and listeners want to hear a little bit of something I like to call a rapid fire round from you.
Okay.
And so I'm going to ask you a few questions. I want you to say the first thing that comes to mind. Okay. So a mindset that you live by.
It's better to admit that you knocked on the wrong door than to be in the wrong room for the rest of your life.
Oh, I like that one. A book that changed you.
Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural.
A daily ritual you swear by. I know we talked about it. You don't really
Walking.
have. All right. A belief that you had to unlearn.
That I'm not good enough.
A truth that you wish everyone understood about healing.
That it's so accessible and it's inside of you. And it's like what Michelangelo thought about his sculptures. They're already inside the rock. He just had to bring them out.
And last one, your definition of peace.
Your relationships.
So I want to thank you as like one of my closest friends, one of my dearest friends.
Thanks.
I'm so happy you were here to share this with me.
Me
and
too.
with all the listeners in the audience and all the viewers. And I know that they had a lot of like really good, valuable insight because talking to you is just uplifts me and makes everything really clear and abundant. So thank you.
Likewise. Thank you, Josh, for having me.
You're welcome. So for everyone out there, wherever you watch and listen to your podcast, please like, subscribe, follow the channel. It really means a lot to us. If you have any questions, you're going to email questions@mindbodymethodpodcast.com. My Instagram is joshgrim_fitnut, FITNUT, and you will see us here every Wednesday. Thanks. Thank you for joining me today on Mind Body Method. This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by me, Josh Grimm, produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig. Original music composed by Nell Balabin. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review. It really helps others to discover the show. I'd love to stay connected with you, so join the conversation by following me at joshgrim_fitnut on Instagram and by emailing me at questions@mindbodypodcast.com.